So we all know Operation Motherland is right around the corner, and the hype for Ghost Recon Breakpoint grows a little more every time there's a new content update. I've been doing some thinking about community members and their lack of enjoyment while playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, so I came up with a list of 10 tips and tricks to roleplay and make Ghost Recon Breakpoint more immersive. For those of you out there looking to switch things up a bit, I recommend trying some or all of these tips and tricks, and let me know how you feel the next time you play the game. Number 1. Ghost experience parameters and the HUD. Make sure the difficulty for enemies is on extreme. For gear score players, I recommend you tune your gear level around 50 or so points below your current gear score. This will ensure your firefights end quickly and swiftly when the enemy shoots you. A few well-placed bullets should lead to an injury and immediate death. This difficulty level will feel harder than anything on Immersive mode. For you Immersive mode players, put your difficulty level for your enemies on Extreme. For the tactical difficulty settings, you will have only one primary weapon, several bandages, syringes heal injuries set to off, risk of injury set to often, stamina consumption on regular, health regeneration set to off, ammo loss on reload set to on, and darkest night on. This will give you a well-balanced playstyle where you can feel all the mechanics of the game. If you want to make things even harder, you can put some of these difficulties up to the next level. Your teammates' special abilities is turned off, sync shot weapons display off for a more immersive experience, social bivouac and garage will never be used. You will never shop at Maria's store or take vehicles from the bivouac. Players can unlock cosmetic items from Maria's store for role-playing purposes. Things like the Sentinel jacket are vital to some core mechanics on this list, and you'll see why shortly. For your interface, you are to turn everything in your HUD off, except your crosshair so you can still shoot in third person, and it's up to the player if they want to keep their compass on, which is the minimap on with minimap visual set to light. Keep on HUD marker objectives with exploration mode on not guided, so you can see objectives when you get close and you can see intel to obtain. If you want things to be completely frustrating, you can turn the HUD marker objectives off. You can also choose to play with loot notifications on, with the loot notification visual being on light, so you can quickly see what items you're picking up without disturbing too much screen real estate. Everything else on your HUD should be turned off. Number 2. Weather setting and clothes. For those of you not starting a new profile for this playthrough, your player should be equipped with a simple set of clothes, similar to the beginning of the game. If the player is to move around the map from the hot humid swamps of Fen Bog to the cold snowy terrain of Silent Mountain during your playthrough, they must first acquire the proper gear off of Sentinel soldiers in order to stay warm in the frigid temperatures. Find soldiers wearing hats, ear protection, beanies, and Sentinel jackets in order to ensure your Nomad can survive in the harsh environments. When you move into these areas and Nomad begins to show signs of being cold, for example, animations of him blowing into his hands, or frost begins to set in on your clothes, equip the proper gear from your backpack or your AI teammate's backpack. If you haven't acquired the gear yet, you're to start a 10-minute timer to either find the proper warm clothing or get out of the cold province and back to the jungles of Aroa where it's warmer. Number 3. Role-playing with gear. You must acquire all of the gear you put on your character from specific locations and specific enemies. For instance, if the player wants to have access to their night vision and thermal goggles, they must first, quote-unquote, acquire these goggles from a specific location in-game. A good example would be the player needing to clear the equipment depot, or sneak in and, quote-unquote, find the item within the compound. Items and gear will, quote-unquote, be stored in the backpack of the player, or they can utilize the backpack of an AI teammate for storage. If the player is playing solo and chooses to play with no backpack, they must designate a hiding area for their gear. The player is to designate a location anywhere in the game world where they have either stored or dropped their gear, and in order to swap gear and items, they must return to this location. This is how the player will normalize changing clothes and items when removing their backpack. Items and gear are stashed in your backpack. Your backpack must be on you in order to equip different types of gear, or the player can utilize an AI teammate's backpack as their designated storage. The AI teammate must be near you when you choose to equip a new item or piece of gear. Number 4. No fast traveling and no using vehicles from the bivouac. Helicopters are never to be used by the player. As for other vehicles, they need keys to start. The player can access these vehicles with the following exceptions. 1. Finding commanders around compounds. If the player spots a commander in the compound, the player is to kill and take the quote-unquote key from the commander's body. At that point, the compound vehicle can be taken. 2. Outside of compounds, when coming across groups of soldiers around trucks or around motorcycles, it can be assumed these enemies have keys to the vehicle they are posted around. Players can also hijack vehicles in use by enemy AI. When the player obtains a vehicle, the player is to start a timer for 10 minutes. 10 minutes will represent the amount of gas in the vehicle. When the timer reaches 0, the vehicle runs out of gas and the player is to abandon the vehicle at that time. Number 5. Staving Off Hunger. To stave off hunger, players are to hunt animals, gather resources, and eat rations. 2 rations are to be eaten throughout a 24-hour period in-game. 1 ration during the day and 1 ration during the night. Number 6. No suppressors. With the AI responses in Ghost Recon Breakpoint, not using a suppressor is more like using a suppressor. Enemies are still confused and are never quite sure if they heard a gunshot or not, even with the suppressor unequipped. No suppressor ensures you engage at a distance and firefights within compounds become dangerous. So unequip your suppressor on your primary weapon and your pistol. Number 7. No player drone. If the player wants to recon an area, they are to utilize the scope on their weapon or their binoculars. At no point in time is the player to ever use their drone. Number 8. No crafting other than bandages and food. The player is to never craft rockets, grenades, C4, syringes, etc. Players must acquire all items in-game and can only craft bandages and food. Number 9. AI teammates. Your AI teammates are never to be told cleared hot past the point of them running away from Nomad. Clear them hot to attack and ambush, but once the AI teammates begin to push forward into Rambo mode, the player must either join them or bring them back to the player's location. The player is to utilize the command wheel to stop them and ensure they don't push past the point of realistic expectations. Furthermore, if a teammate is downed, that teammate is deemed KIA. Pause the game and remove that teammate from play, and only bring them back in-game if you can get back to Erewhon, replacing them with a new ghost and a new look. Number 10. Death equals delete. For those of you attempting to use these settings with an already in-game character that you've been playing with, then this really isn't for you. I don't expect you to delete your character, and these tips and tricks are more guidelines on how you can begin to roleplay in a serious manner in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. But for those of you who want a hardcore challenge, make a new character, play by these rules, and if you die, you delete your character. A true hardcore challenge and the true nature of Ghost Recon. These tips and tricks are here for you to get an idea of how you can roleplay in a more realistic manner in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. An honorable mention would be something like getting into vehicles and waiting for your AI teammates to enter, rather than take off and watch them pop up in your vehicle later on. This playstyle is a much more realistic approach to the game. Nomad crash landing on Aroa, having to fight and claw his way into becoming a well-decked out soldier, grabbing anything of use off his enemies and within enemy compounds, rather than acquiring magical loot that drops off enemies and can be found in loot crates. This is the way the game should have been designed in my opinion. So put the difficulty on extreme, remove your HUD, gather items and weapons from specific compounds and enemies, and hold yourself accountable to some of these tips and tricks. If you have any good tips or tricks of your own that you come up with while playing, share them with the community. Comment down below on some ideas you have, or join the Discord and let us all know your ideas on how we could better roleplay in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The Discord link is in the description. Okay, ghosts, that's all for now. Everyone have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video. Alright guys, peace.